Hello, I'm previewing the fourth song, How Do You Use Assessment? And a couple things that I wanted to note about this song that I wasn't able to talk about in the song itself was just an example of what would a good kind of social studies assessment be for the high school level. Something that I borrowed from Dr. Scott Waring of the University of Central Florida that I used in my own practicum was this observe reflection question activity we learned about in CI 403. And I thought this was a great assessment strategy to use in a high school social studies classroom because it gave students an opportunity to respond to a photograph in their own words. So that gave them choice. And it was authentic because they were actually doing the work of a historian. They were looking at a primary source and trying to make sense of what the heck it could be about. It was like a mystery. Um, Almost embedded in the activity was like an essential question written like one of those mystery questions that we learned about in the different when we learned about in CF 403 the different ways that you can frame a question. Like students were almost like playing like a detective. How do I make sense of this picture? So I just thought that was a great example of a assessment in a high school social studies class. Other examples might be writing letters to the editor, and maybe in like a political science class on behalf of a candidate or a cause. You can also have mock Supreme Court cases, other role playing activities like trials, mock trials, or um, of historical figures. Maybe you want to put Julius Caesar on trial and was he a good person? Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Weigh it and see what students think about. I think social studies is kind of in a unique spot to do that because the people are real that we're putting on trial. So it adds some kind of weight to it. But it's also fun and creative. So I think that can be a good way to engage students. Whether teachers use rubrics or are just providing students with written feedback, I think teachers should always promote assessment for learning by tying their assessments to state standards, enduring understandings, and essential questions. I think teachers should also compliment students on their strengths when they provide feedback. The goal is to provide a balance of strengths and areas of improvement, but and I aim to do that. I'm going to try and, if possible, give students a couple more strengths than areas of improvement, just so that it kind of builds their confidence. But you want, as the year progresses, you might decide maybe a balance is more appropriate because I know my students, they trust the process and that I'm not being too hard on them. I want them to learn so they can take this constructive feedback and learn from it. And teachers should also be aware of the parts of assessment that should remain consistent. So I talked briefly in the song about if you have English language learners or students with disabilities that maybe have a IEP or a 504 plan, you're legally required as a teacher to accommodate that student in the way that's been dictated in the plan. But for students that don't have a 504 plan or an IEP, it is important, like we talked about in the previous video, to maintain consistency in how you deliver the assessment. Lastly, I just want to say that gathering as much data from assessments as possible is something that I'm going to do. So for diagnostic assessments, that might be what do students, what don't they know and what do they know? What can I build off of? So if you're learning about ancient Rome, okay, maybe they know where Rome is roughly in Italy, but maybe they don't know why Rome had an impact on the Renaissance. So we can talk about that. In terms of formative assessments, maybe as they're reading primary sources on the Renaissance or as I'm lecturing them and they're offering responses, raising their hand or calling something out, I can challenge them, play devil's advocate with them. That can be another form of that can be a form of formative assessment. And then summative assessment, right? That might be a test or something. But even if the summative assessment, the point of it is to assess students by grading them and seeing how far they've come, you can still implement and include formative assessments in a summative assessment. You can give them written feedback on maybe an essay question, an in-class essay question, if you want to give them written descriptive feedback, I think that's great, because then students learn that, okay, it's not just about the grade I get. It's my teacher actually really cares about me trying to learn the material and the skills that we're talking about in this class. So I hope you enjoyed the song, and thank you very much.